Okay, let's get started. We have made it to the fifth week. So this week we'll be discussing a new topic, fresh topic. That is something to do with the cultural influences, right? So we call it cultural or rhetorical influences in second language writing, right? So first of all, when we talked about the influence of culture, what actually popped up? What can you think of? The influence of culture, the influence of language, how language, they influence our thought, how language system, may influence our perceptions of the world.
Reminds me of Sapir.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very good, John. So Sapir of hypothesis, right? Yes. So what does that hypothesis say to us?
The language, there's the weak and the strong version.
Uh-huh.
And the strong version is the language you use affects how you think about the world. And the strong version, the weaker version is there is some influence.
Yes. So the stronger version goes like the language systems can even determine the thought, right? So sometimes we call it the linguistic determinism, right? And the weaker version, I personally believe weaker version works well. Of course, I do believe the language systems can influence, right? The thought can influence our perceptions of the world, or can influence our, the cognition. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's just take a look at this. I think we may want to, learn further about the linguistic relativity and how this may relate to our topic today that is called, contrastive rhetoric. Okay? Let us watch this short video about linguistic relativity.
When we talk about language, we often dig down to universal categories like nouns and verbs, consonants and vowels, phrases and sentences. We end up with these cross-language concepts that individual languages are built on, almost as if the colorful diversity found in the world's languages is just icing on the strong unity of the linguistic cake. And language is grounded in our way of thinking and processing information, which is itself universal among humans. So languages and cultures are superficial, but language and cognition run deep. But this isn't the only way to look at language. What if the language we are brought up to speak actually relates to the way we look at reality? From this perspective, a language is a particular way of conceptualizing the world, and has close ties to culture. In the 1930s, Benjamin Lee Whorf talked about language this way. He argued that different languages represent different ways of thinking about the world around us. This view has come to be called linguistic relativity. Exploring the grammar of the Hopi language, he concluded that the Hopi have an entirely different concept of time than European languages do, and that the European concepts of time and matter are actually conditioned by language itself. One practical consequence of linguistic relativity: direct translation between languages isn't always possible. Since Hopi and English aren't simply ways of expressing the same thing in different words, you can't actually preserve thoughts or viewpoints when you translate between them. In its strongest expression, linguistic relativity, the idea that viewpoints vary from language to language, relies on linguistic determinism, the idea that language determines thought. In other words, how people think doesn't just vary depending on their language, but is actually grounded in, determined by, the specific language of their community. Linguistic relativity has been abandoned and criticized over the decades, with critics aiming to show that perception and cognition are universal, not tied to language and culture. But some psychologists and anthropologists continue to argue that differences in a language's structure and words may play a role in determining how we think. Experiments on how speakers of different languages approach non-linguistic tasks continue to spark this debate. Thank you for joining me on this quick tour of linguistic relativity and linguistic determinism. Please hit the...
Okay, so let us talk about the influence of culture. Maybe this is actually a topic that have already been discussed in some other classes already, right? So for example, do you think that we have really good examples, I mean, judging from your own experience, how the culture, the different culture may, influence the way of your thinking, the different language systems may influence the way of the perception? Or if you any knowledge, some experiments that others have already conducted.
It's hard if you don't have a word for something to conceptualize the idea. So until words come into currency, the ideas behind those words, it's hard to think about it without those words. I was trying to think of biological model, a good example. I couldn't come up with one, but I think one's, until we had the word Holocaust to describe that event, once you have a word to describe something, it creates it into an almost new category.
Exactly.
And I hadn't known until recently that state wars were coming under such attack.
I
was talking to somebody and they looked at me like I was crazy when I brought up the weak state war hypothesis. And so I think in linguistics and a few other ones, it's still, and again, there's probably multiple reasons why there's been pushback. But yeah, it's if you don't have a word to describe something, it's hard to have that concept.
That's right, exactly. This is a very good example, and I agree. Yeah, how about other thought? I actually learned. I remember I read a certain, say research years ago. That was a research study that was really very interesting for me. So I remember the experiment, the participants of the experiment are the, were the people from a certain tribe, right? So for that specific tribe, I cannot name it, I forgot the name, but I remember in that tribe, the people usually had no language for the color blue, right? So they were given the test for certain kind of, on the screen, and there are 0 different, shapes with the same color as green, but there's only one shape that is blue. Then they were asked to see whether they were able to detect that specific one that is distinctive, that is different from the other shapes in other colors, right? You know the answer? For us, if you are given the chance to, detect whether, this is distinctive, or whether this is different from a, blue one, it's different from a, green one, that's easy for you, right? But guess what? The results shows like they took much longer time distinguishing that specific blue with the other green. Because for them, there's no language. Then that specific, language kind of obscured their perception of that specific color. I think this is a really good example. I even can't believe it. If I do not have a certain, language to describe it, as John said just now, I really didn't know what would happen, right? To your brain, what would you perceive that specific color, right? Would that maybe that green will be really similar to, blue, or green was even similar to red if I do not have the color red?
That's what I was thinking. You'd have to associate it with whatever the person said.
Exactly. That's very interesting. How about your personal anecdote? Do you have anything you want to share?
Well, I think of when we're watching the video and they're talking about how language shapes our thinking.
That's right.
I was thinking of how in English, for example, we have names for professions, specific professions that are equated with masculinity and femininity. So, for example, a fireman, a policeman.
That's right.
but a male nurse, and how all those sort of frame the way gender roles are assigned.
Good example. So here, say you are talking about the language sexes, right? So we feel like this specific language is like the fireman, as you said, the spokesman, right? So feel like kind of constrain our perception. Seems like those firemen must be a man, the spokesman must be a man. Female ladies can also do it, right? So that kind of like say influence of our say our perception of the world. Yeah, it does make
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the color blue you said. Then I was thinking that, for example, the word red is, in English, I see it has different words for that. Yes, for red, yes, or something that is close to red. I don't know the words, but I have heard them. And then back home, I can remember that, okay, we've got two kinds of red. Yes. For example, that is exactly because of the culture. In the past, kind of wine was very common in the country. So, and the color of that was kind of red, but it was dark red. So whenever they wanted to talk about that color, they referred it to that kind of wine. Yes. See, exactly. It was related to culture,
different
to the
associations,
language,
right?
exactly. Yeah. But here, I don't know why. For example, in English, they have. And I really like it because for different kinds of red, yes, exactly, they have a special
different names for it, right? So you have to say here the first, English as the first language speakers can even distinguish those tiny, say, kind of only little differences, right? For example, just a little bit of tint, different degree of tint, right? Maybe, you guys know better, right? You think so? Because for me, in Chinese, we actually just have that specific red, 红, say to me, red. But if we feel like you want to describe it further, then you add a certain like adjective like 大红. So it is kind of like a little bit, 大 means big, that is even, say kind of like denser or something like that, But I feel it's really hard for me to, say distinguish those, right, very easily. Maybe that is a good example.
I can remember when I wanted to change the plate number here in Texas. So when I went to that office, they asked me the color of the car, and I said red. I said, "Are you sure it is red?" I said, "Yeah, it's red." And then the officer just walked out and looked at the car and said, "No, this is not red. This is
It's crimson.
Maroon?
maroon." I said, "No, it is maroon." Oh. See, I didn't know that because of the kind of the culture is
That's right.
related.
Exactly. Very good example of that.
No, even it wasn't maroon. It was something else.
Well, I'm thinking of crimson.
Yeah,
Something.
yeah. It is with Q, something like that. What's that? I don't know. Yeah, I have to check it.
A different, say tints, and actually there are different color names, say for that specific color, right? Yeah, I do have a specific, say, example. I mean, this is very interesting to tell because I myself even thought that it's kind of like a shame for me because actually I'm very bad at driving, to be honest, especially during the night or especially when I'm in a very strange place. I got lost so often because I don't think that I can recognize all the directions. So I feel like possibly because of my language in Sichuan province, the dialects, the dialects, say for example, in my own home country, say especially in my hometown in Chengdu, say we usually when you are giving the say chance to describe the directions, we never say like you should go. We should go to north, should go south, or it goes east or west. We just talk about okay, you go straight until you say see this traffic light, and then remember to turn right or remember to turn left. We never talk about those specific directions, the names north, south, east, and west. Actually, are seldom discussed. But my husband is totally different. because he comes from another, say place in the south area of China. So by the way, I come from the southwest, and my husband come from the, just the east, say east of the, China, East China. And he felt so easy to distinguish, say, oh, this is north and this is south. For me, I never know. Even now, I can only tell, viewing what the sun, if you tell me, and I know, okay, I know the direction. But if there's, for example, if it's windy, if it's rainy, and I have no idea. Is that a good example to show, like, you do not have that specific language, and you never kind of like train your brain to think that way. And it's so hard for you to distinguish what specific direction,
And when you're trying to think about the directions, you don't have the words that perhaps, the ones that he.
We have the words, of course.
Oh, I know.
We have the words, even in dialects,
Yeah.
we have. But when I'm talking about during the conversation, I mean, for example, in Sichuan dialect,
Yeah.
Especially there was a joke, and we kind of a lot of, audience had a lot of fun. Always told you use Sichuanese, very interesting. Everybody, the foreigners ask the way if they got lost, and they ask the way, and the answers always go like, go straight until the end of the street, turn right or turn left,
Yeah.
Everybody seems to answer the same thing. They seldom say, oh, you should go north when you, say, reach certain place, then go a little bit south, whatever. Never. At least we seldom answer that way.
This explains why teaching directions was so boring.
That's right. Oh, that's the reason, right?
Yeah, because you would teach them
Because even in Chinese, it was so hard for them to understand. Is it south or north?
Because you would teach
because when we cannot visualize that.
Some lessons you say, okay, you give directions where you go, past the 3rd Street on your left, go north and turn right. You go east 2 seconds, it's on your left. And they would always have weeks of hard time doing that. Maybe that's part of the reason why.
Oh, but I'm so happy to learn that.
Yeah.
That's even like also the different ages, right? The students.
Yeah, these were about 10 years old.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Even in Chinese, they would feel like it's hard because they cannot visualize the map.
I don't feel so bad. Because that was one of the harder lessons I always had to get that lesson as part of the curriculum. Now it kind of makes sense that it's such difficulty.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so you enjoy teaching that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, wonderful. So good to share.
I found that red, burgundy.
Uh-huh.
Burgundy, yeah.
Okay.
Burgundy.
No.
Your car is burgundy.
Yes, sir. That's right. Okay, so now let us talk about the differences, cultural differences that can be reflected in composition. Okay, so here comes the field that is called contrastive rhetoric. How many of you heard this before? Okay, good. So basically, the easiest understanding for this one is to say that, say it's a study of how a person's first language and a culture influences his or her writing in second language. So, according to Dr. Kohler, so this is exactly what, say contrastive rhetoric is. Contrastive rhetoric is an area of research in second language acquisition that identifies problems in composition encountered by second language writers. By referring to the rhetorical strategies of first language, attempts to explain them. So basically here we can tell that, okay, it's a field in second language acquisition. It tries to help us understand the, say, others' problems, especially those who do not have English as a first language. What specific problems they may have when they develop their writing, particularly here, when they develop their paragraphs, their passages. Right? Then by referring to or comparing their own language, their first language, are there any differences between these paragraph organizations? Maybe there are. Then would these differences account for the differences or account for what they write? Right? So, by the way, I do think that this has a lot of pedagogical implications. We will discuss later. Okay? So, how about the seminal work? When we talk about CR, you must know this specific, say, cultural thought patterns. Right? We are familiar with this, right? The similar work is actually conducted by Robert Kaplan in 1966. So in his article, Cultural Thought Patterns in Intercultural Education, he actually argues that cultural specific patterns of organization affect writing conventions. Here's how. So take a look at this diagram here. We have English version, then we have the Semitic version and Oriental version, Romance version, and Russian version. So by the way, when he conducted the research, the participants, the participants were international students at a university. Okay, so these international students, of course, have a different first language background. Okay, so he actually connected at least 600, say huge data, I would say. Then he tried to, figure out what are the distinctive features for that specific language group, right? For example, he categorized, say Oriental as a ethnic group. For example, like Korean, Japanese, say Chinese, Oriental, and then Romance, for example, say Italian, French. We try to figure out what are the differences. Will these differences be reflected in their writing? Okay, can you understand this? Can you explain what you think here? What are the differences?
English is linear.
Yeah, good. To get to the point. Yeah. Then, how about Semitic?
Topic to topic.
Error, yeah. Topic to topic goes like zigzag, right? Zigzag. Okay, how about next one? So here I want to argue here. I want to say, point it out here. See, he's still trying to get the topic, right? But still, gain a little bit things like it's okay, and then however they continue to divert a little bit, right? Digress a little bit, and then continue, so progress again, and then digress a little bit, right? Until, this way, later, and you see they get to the point.
Okay, so it's more along the lines of making your point, then backtrack a little bit.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. Gradually, you reach it.
Okay.
Right. The Oriental one is even more interesting. How can you understand that?
Talking around the main topic.
That's right. Did you actually encounter this, the examples from your students' writing? It goes like we call it the circling inward, right? So they may be touched upon just from the really outer space, outer side, so outside, so a little bit, gradually at the end, so they focus, on the topic, the center. I'll give you the examples, then later you can understand. So for example, when we talk about, for example, I'll give you an example about the college education, and then the student may, begin with something else, say talking about the importance of the human civilization, right? And gradually, little by little, and then talk about why you need to go to college, why, say the college education is important, right? So they actually have a lot of, discussions, bigger or background information there, and then gradually, say right after this circle, you can see, just rounds and rounds and rounds and circles, and then they got to the point. Now, how about the next one? I think this fifth and the fourth and the fifth are very similar, right? A little bit similar, I should say. Their digressions are a little bit different, right? So because all of them get to the point first. Okay, I'm talking about this topic. But not like that English version, not straight, not linear, right? Then you can see, say a little bit, digressions, right? Now I'll show you some examples here. Okay, please read this paragraph. And this paragraph was written by an Arabic student. Okay.
It looks like Romance or Russian.
This is actually, I don't think that was written by an Arabic student. Yeah, the Arabic students tend to use a lot of, things like translations there, right? So something like the, and, but, and, so, blah, blah, blah. Let us talk about that.
Starts out with his point and kind of wanders around a little bit and talks about the bicycle.
This,
Eventually gets back to the point. So I began to study hard.
yes, but so the keyword here is study, right? You focus on study. Maybe the say task is about like what specific say experience during like the childhood, say war or certain year, right? So he mentioned that, or she mentioned that he or she was not study say enough to pass the course, and then he continued to the writer continued to discuss like something to do with the cousin, right? Talking about the bicycle, right? And but after several weeks, and they, he promised me if I pass the course, he will give me to me a present. So that's very interesting because for me as a reader, so we basically feel like I just really want to know what specific things you want to talk about. You want to get these things across easily, right? So for us, maybe I think it's a little bit redundant, right? Or kind of like too trivial, right? For example, you can definitely say that, because I love bicycles, so my cousin promised that if I work hard, he would give me a bicycle as a gift. Therefore, I worked so hard all through the summer, whatever, right? And then it's done. But there are a lot of sentences and some, say kind of like, very trivial details there, right? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So we try to, say.
Actually, is it possible that they use this because of the influence of their first language? For example, they
Yes, I think so.
something that
Exactly,
the first
I think so.
language in their mind, and then they change it into English. So
I
this
do
is
think so,
why.
especially for the say like the maybe lower level, right, proficiency level students, right? They try. I know in say Kaplan's work, even some of the versions are provided as a translation of the native language. I think so. Yeah, some students tended to do like that, right? John mentioned last time, several students from his class, right? Say still like to say translate when the writing task is given. Right? Yes. Okay. In contrast, this is Oriental example. This was written by a Korean student. Okay. Any comment?
In my opinion, if you, for example, imagine the first one is the introduction and the last one is the conclusion. If you just link them together, okay, it makes sense. So you can easily omit the second and the third sentence. It means that he is just expanding something that it is unnecessary. Yes, while directly he could have gone from the first one to the last one, yes, but he's just beating around the bush, something like that, to answer the question.
Yeah, talk about a lot of other things, right? Some importance of education. The say human, even like the say why say human beings are superior to animals, right? Okay, the civilization something. Is that right? Yeah, and that's interesting that this students also wrote a lot of paragraphs here, right? Even though this can actually belong to only one or two paragraphs, right? Lots of paragraphs. But take a look at the first sentence. The college is an institution of higher learning that gives degree. So at this moment, maybe we feel that's okay, right? That is still related to college education, right? But all of a sudden, when you read the second one, all of us need culture in education. Now culture suddenly pop up, right? And then continue to talk about the importance of the civilization. Why we humans are, say, making great progress, right? That is even bigger theme there.
Exactly, the first part is related to the culture of, I know South Korea.
That's right.
In South
really?
Korea, yeah, this is what I have heard.
Okay,
You
good,
might
good,
want
please,
to-
please, yeah,
I
yeah.
have heard that in South Korea, education is really important these days.
Uh-huh.
If you want to get, for example, a better life, you need to study. You
Yeah.
need to have some college degrees.
Uh-huh.
And exactly in his first sentences, the writer shows that, okay, if you don't have good education, if you don't have a degree, your life is not as good as the degree holders.
Uh-huh.
So it is exactly the influence of the culture on his writing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. According to what he knows, right? And so he knows about that, and this is true, of course, right? Now how about the say next, second or third paragraph? So you guys have other comments about this, and we can also tell that the language proficiency level, is really not as good as high as the first one, right? And we can see a lot of errors, but here we just really focus on the organizations here.
Really digresses from.
That's right. Then how about the next one? This is a Romance example. This writing was completed by a French, the native speaker of French. This is an interesting piece, right?
Does it talk a lot about traffic law?
Okay, let us comment on this. So first of all, comment on the organization and maybe something
It's
else.
a very common way of writing in French is where before you get to your thesis statement, you make a general statement. Anecdote. So that's why in the beginning he says, at first glance, the traffic law in the US appeared to be similar.
So this seems to be a good
It's a
topic
general
sentence,
start.
right?
Uh-huh.
Since this is a good, at least the topic sentence. Then
there
we
you
feel
go.
like, what happened? Then he talked about something else, right? What is that?
It seems you're missing introduction. Is it so?
It's because he feels like he needs to talk more about nuance at first before getting to the main topic.
Uh-huh.
It seems like he's digressing, but he's not. He'll get to it eventually.
It seems to me, he says, okay, the topic's American traffic law. He starts
That's
out,
right.
first glance traffic law in the United States appeared to be simpler than switcher.
That's right.
Then it seems he goes on, now I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about.
That's right. For example, first of all, so what are the differences, right? Then don't you think that also that is reasonable because the traffic laws can be related, to the situations, local situations, right? Because like the second paragraph, right, is that something to do with the streets, the conditions of the, because for him or her, it's maybe easier to drive in America, right? Seems like, right? According to the author, the driver knows how to situate himself, right? There's no problem to find the way.
But in
It's
both,
still related, right?
but in both of them, he finishes in the first, the American, he finishes talking about the streets.
Yeah.
Not the laws, but
That's
the
right.
streets.
Not the laws.
And in the second one,
Exactly.
he's talking about how bad the streets are.
How bad
Not the
the streets
laws, but the streets.
That's right. That's right. And even say lead to the accidents there,
Yeah.
right? Okay, that's right. But so when we go back, so when we check that, so we can still see the differences between this and this or this is that they actually get some specific thesis statement in the very beginning,
Yeah.
right? They get to the points in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Not like the orientation, the Oriental one, not like this Semitic one, right? They kind of like a little bit curves there, a little bit, say zigzags there until the end. They get the, say point.
I think the romance would fit, it's the closest to that
That's right. That's right. I think so. Yeah.
with examples.
What I saw was funny was some of the expressions he used in there. He
Oh,
did a
yeah.
direct translation.
Oh, really? This is exactly
So funny that he said that.
a direct translation, right? For example,
Like, for example, there is no problem to find his way. You wouldn't say that normally as a
Yeah.
English native speaker.
Yeah,
But in
yeah.
French, il n'y a pas de problème. Everyone says that a lot as a current speech, so everybody uses it. So we just translated that directly in there, even though it doesn't fit in. It's so funny. And then American towns in general have the disposition. Like that's a common statement you would say. Like every time you just put it there. I was like, oh my gosh, you didn't even have to tell me it was a French person. I could tell.
You could tell.
That this person's first language is French.
Yeah. But anyway, I just think that you can see the kind of like a variety of vocabulary here, right? Some vocabulary words a little bit say at the higher level, I believe. Say than the first and the second one, right? So yeah, good. So some sentence syntactic structures are a little bit different, right? But I mean the words and vocabulary actually are good, right? Okay.
And then the last sentence, he says, the country of delicious wines. That's a direct translation. You wouldn't say the country of delicious wines. You would say something like, I don't know, you would rather...
the country known with or known as...
But in French, because the possession is le pays de... So he just did
exactly
word for word translation.
So... Good. So here, that is why so the field contrastive say rhetorical can actually play an important role, right, in our teaching. And we can definitely have some say the teachers would make kind of like envision what would be the pitfalls for the students, right? Yeah. Do you think there are any criticisms? Do you think that this specific say ways Kaplan's different say cultural thought patterns makes great sense, or something that can be debatable? Think about the participants, think about say our use of it, or how you view it, any other criticisms?
I think it's a little debatable because one, the diagrams he used I have a problem with the arrows because he made it seem like the Western ones, it's like it's going direct and straight to the point, which kind of hints like the rest are not going. I don't know. That's my main problem with the diagrams, by showing that, English is straight line and the rest are going around. It's like hinting as if the rest are not going to the point.
That is what I also read, is what she means, that they said it is egocentric to choose English as the base. Why should English be the
Why
base?
should English be the base? The rest are not
from their viewpoint, right?
And then putting them in the same in groups. If you take Romance languages, there's so many variation. You can't put all of it in one box and say that's how they all. Even Oriental is not going to be the same. Korean writers are not going to accept it the same.
For example,
Very good.
Japanese and Chinese in the same group, while you're totally
different. You can see a lot of differences, so even with the same family, right? That's good. That's good. Yeah. Anything else? How about the participants? Remember, all these are kind of like say not higher level. My higher proficiency level, these are international students who enter the first year, right? I believe program, right? Those were just a certain population, certain group that cannot represent, right? The people from other, say population. So here are some criticisms.
Another critique I was thinking is it's like the emphasis is too much on error analysis, because by doing that and saying that this is how it is, it's making it seem as if it's a little prescriptive, so students are not, it's like encouraging them to write, because now we're focusing on the errors that they're making based on the transfer of their native language, which shouldn't be, I don't know if that should be the focus or not. But I think that can be problematic for second language writers if we're constantly focusing on their errors.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. But by the way, I do think that the error analysis is actually something different. So here we talked about the organizational patterns, right? So if we talk about error, and then we really focus on the language accuracy, That makes sense? And especially when we, discuss teacher feedback, peer response, that is specific, for example, grammatical mistakes, the misuse of a certain maybe vocabulary or word choice, we call those, mistakes. Or if there are, say, kind of like the patterns, then we call them errors, right? But here we're talking about, say there are different conventions, right? Different writing conventions, different, say progressions of the ways that are totally different from the, say native speakers, say expectations, right?
I thought that was the objective of contrastive rhetoric, was to see what the influence is and how to correct the errors.
Oh, you know what? That is called contrastive analysis.
Oh.
That means that contrastive rhetoric versus contrastive analysis. So for contrastive analysis, they definitely focus on the differences or the similarities between different language systems, right? Because I remember in secondary acquisition, usually we talked about those errors. You say, hey, look at these students' errors. Maybe that is actually something to do with the transfer. We have negative transfer, we have positive transfer, right? And when we discuss the differences, right? If this specific language has no specific grammatical features, then the students might, make such a mistake. Then we say, oh, see, you can see this contrastive analysis works. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So
there are two different theories.
Yeah, it's a different topic here. So the contrast. Thank you for bringing that. So that's very important. So contrastive analysis really focus on the language use, especially under the say at the smaller level, I should say, or lower level. For example, I should say at the most the syntactic level, right? Because we're talking about the maybe it can be something to do with diction, something to do with mechanical or even like a punctuation until, say like the syntactic, so sentence, patterns. Does it make sense? But here we talk about the, say coherence usually, right? The discourse level, right? Very good. Very good. So here, for example, we mentioned that ethnocentric because, it definitely we can argue because it's a privilege, the writing of native English speakers, right? You judged all this from your point of view, right? You said this is media, but in my mind, say writing style can be also called media, right? Something like that. The second one, stereotype. So because it may ignore some variations within the culture. So even, for example, the Korean students may have such a specific pattern. That does not mean all the Korean students will write like that. That's it, right? So like once again, language proficiency levels and their own experiences, of course, count, right? So that is related to some other factors, right? The say specific variations may occur, such as the genre, the topics, right? Also, this Kaplan's cultural pattern may dismiss linguistic or cultural differences among some different languages within the same family, right? As we said just now, right? Okay. And also, we don't want to compare this lawless second language writing with a professional first language writing. Okay. But still, it has some, important implications for us. Before we get started, moving on the second topic about some specific, differences, I would actually like you to work on your, paper. You work on your, analysis a little bit. I will say later, Jason from the marketing office will be coming soon, and I think we would be happy to have some of your faces there discussing the, your sample and how this specific knowledge can be applicable to your own analysis later in your class, right? So I think it would be better for me to give you some time working on that. Maybe we can discuss a little bit before we go there to present. But anyway, basically, I will be there, but I just want to give him a chance to, have a student input as well. If you are ready, you're welcome to go and present. If you are not, that's okay. But here I want to give you some time, maybe for reading, for your own say analysis. So remember last time I mentioned that you want to analyze a paper written by your students or written by a scholar, right? And then using say topical structure analysis. Remember the topical structure analysis? I give you the handouts, right? There are 3 different progressions as well. That is the assignment sheet. I'm talking about the handouts.
Yeah.
For example, you have parallelism, then also the CARS model. So if you want to discuss the research paper, you use CARS model. If you want to just discuss, for example, those like narratives, students' narratives, right? And then you can use how the coherence, can occur, or there's no coherence at all. There's no coherence break. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so let us continue. This contrastive rhetoric actually tells us those are, cultural, cross-linguistic, and cross-cultural influences. So these influences can be reflected at the sentence levels or at the paragraph levels and the discourse levels, right? So remember last time we mentioned the coherence, right? So that is at the discourse level, right? And also these influences can even be reflected about the different assumptions of the nature of the writing or the purposes of the written text. Okay, here are some examples. When we talk about the writing, right, we always bear in mind the readers, bear the readers in mind, right? Say, we feel like, who are my readers? Who are my audience, right? So we think about it. However, in Japanese writing, they believe the reader responsibility is important. I do not need to have my writing to be reader friendly because it is you, the readers, who can take the full responsibility of the writing. So you can be very smart, you can be very wise, you understand what I mean. Does it make sense? However, you can tell according to the English. From the perspectives of English, English is the first language, speakers, we always expect those writings are reader friendly, right? We try to bear readers in our mind, right? What does that say? What does that say to us? So maybe you can see some writing completed by Japanese students may lack a certain, coherence more. According to what we believe, what specific conventions they needed to, adhere to. Does it make sense? And also, it's very interesting. Their writings is inductive. Okay, just now we did inductive. So just now we mentioned that, the Oriental family, right? Those are different expectations. And according to, some other researchers, Chinese writing is a little bit different too. So I remember in our textbook, the peer response tasks, right? Did you remember there is actually a specific task that were given to the international students, particularly Chinese students. They feel so bad to critique or criticize others, right? So that is to say their peer feedback was usually not really very constructive. So they actually had a lot of, praises. They just really touch upon those superficial, features. They didn't actually definitely make great efforts to provide a lot of critiques or constructive feedback. That is something to do with your culture. Because for the Chinese students, they want to maintain what? The harmony, right? So I'm the group member, right? So I really want to save your face, right? I don't want to make you feel bad because of your not so good writing, right? So this is something to do with culture again. So again, if you take a look at this Chinese writing, and you can see they use rhetorical questions, and they also love to use some anecdotes in order to reveal the intention. They do not, speak out purposefully or so explicitly. Okay, so let us move on. Here, I would like us to discuss this again about the rhetorical organizations. Remember, if we needed to analyze students' writing, we want to discuss their coherence, right? Coherence of the writing, because this is so weak point. So a lot of students have some, say they definitely do not do well in this specific aspect. So here is how we can help them. I would love you to think more about the students' writing by doing some hands-on experience, okay? If you have some students who come from a different cultural background, right, then you can definitely analyze the writing, focusing on the topical structure analysis. So this is how you can do. Remember, the analysis goes like this. You have the passage, right? And then you underline those important words. For example, here we focus on the topics. What are the rhymes? Okay, what are the rhymes? So you know here, the first one, so human infant, right? Okay, this is something that the author wants to introduce. And then continue to move on to the newborn children. Oh, that's good, because children is similar to infant. So you know this synonym is really a good use. Now you can see you get to the point, right? And then you continue with the third sentence. Then you know the something important here. The topic again is newborn child. So again, if you take a look at this one, then you know this is the same topic. So once again here, that is coherent so far, because the first one, infant, the second one, children, and the third one, child. And then you can take a look at the fourth one, child again. So you know this is coherent writing here, right? Now let us move on. Here, the fifth sentence, this helplessness of human infants is in marked contrast. Now, the topic switch a little bit. Right? So now it's not the child now. It switched to what? Another topic. The helplessness of this the specific, say, human infants. The feature, right? Then we move on. Something else introduced. The animals. Why animals are introduced here? Because they talked about the contrast between the human infants and the newborn animals. Now you know this is another important, progressing. So here you know this is actually extended, right? So next one, if you take a look at this specific one, we can say this is a sequential progressing. So that's to say, you continued to discuss this child, this topic until number 5. Then the author switched to another specific topic, right? Then you know this is called sequential progressing rather than parallel progressing. Does it make sense? Okay, so if you move on, you take a look at sentence 7, sentence 8, then again, you can see when you read your sentence 8, the, say, important topic here again, the infant, right? So they move, say, extend it a little bit, have a sequential, and then they say be back again, and say after they discuss the language and then the human being again. So this is called the extended parallel progression. So that is to say you focus on the infant. However, right after you discuss your infant, in number 9, sentence 9, you have a discussion of the language, and then you get back to number 10, human beings. Does it make sense? Because this is a good way for the students to analyze their paper as well, right? So the research study even shows that if the instructors teach the students how to analyze their own paper using this, say, topical structure analysis, then their writing can be improved, right? So now I give you the chance to take a look at the students' writing, if you have here, and then take a look at it and analyze it this way. Also, I would love you to, say, take a look at another one. Okay, actually, this video is very similar, right? So here, some topic number here. There are 4 topics. Until here, these are parallelism. Here, the 2, 3, 4, and again, so you notice that these are sequential, right? Sequential. And then the last one, this begins with human infant. Then you can see the second one, learning language as a second topic. And the human being again, be back. Did you notice that? So you can see this specific extended parallelism happens here, right? Okay, so this is one example you can follow, and I would like you to, analyze it. The second one is CARS model. We discussed this already, but today I would like you to have your specific analysis. So have your, I would love you to choose one, piece of writing, possibly, from a journal article, right? And then take a look at it to see whether this CARS model is used, in the introduction section. So remember, again, CARS model address the introduction of research articles. Okay? Now take a look at these moves and steps. When you analyze it, you actually just need to mark it as 1 and step 1, 2, 3, right? Or move 2 and steps A, B, C, D, right? So you mark that, try to figure out whether this can be followed. For instance, first of all, you definitely can find a certain, text where that address the, territory, right? So you try to address the topic generalization. Or there should be some text that review the previous literature, right? And then the second move, establish a niche, and then the third move for occupying a niche, then different steps. Okay, so I would like you to discuss with your partners what specific findings you have reached, or if you guys can pair, say off and provide some feedback on each other's, analysis, that would be great. And then, one of you can be invited here and do a, small report. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. So, okay, let us welcome John to come here and, analyze the article selected, let's say from TESOL Quarterly, right?
Yes.
Go.
Okay, so the first one is establishing a research territory. So, like I said, he's not typical of what you kind of read. He doesn't, in one sentence, establish his territory.
Mm-hmm.
So here, so such theories, and he's talking about language theories, post-structuralist perspectives in his introduction. And he says, then he moves into such theories enjoy much currency in L1 circles, almost becoming the orthodoxy in areas like composition teaching, and words like discourse and empowerment becoming cliched and posing the danger that they might have lost their critical edge. TESOL, on the other hand, while being a far more controversial activity, has managed to see itself as safely apolitical due to its positive preoccupation with methods and teaching. So the research territory he's kind of staking out is kind of viewing the classroom within those two different paradigms.
Yep.
So establishing his niche. So
Then move 2.
and he does move 1B a couple times, so it can be and or. So 1B is introducing and reviewing items. So, and you see a lot of keywords that, can signal to you. So through their papers, and so he introduced through the papers of the TESOL Quarterly, and then Pennycock introduces really important to this paper. And so, and establishing his niche down here, and however is another keyword which signals you he's going to move into kind of what he wants to do. And what Pennycock overlooks in this process is the classroom as a site of diverse discourses and cultures represented by various backgrounds. And he goes on to talk about how you can't just view it through kind of one prism of the TESOL prism. This classroom is not only TESOL, it's also cultural rhetoric. It's also a bunch of stuff in the same classroom.
Exactly.
Because so that's kind of the niche he's going to occupy is. So the objective of this paper is not to outline one or more pedagogies of resistance, but to interrogate the range of behaviors students display in the face of domination, the awareness of which should precede and inform any development of such pedagogies. The ethnographic study below is an ESOL classroom in Sri Lanka. Creatively complicates the perspective of domination resistance presented by Pennycock and Pierce.
Okay.
So we've used not only TESOL, it's TESOL situated in that environment.
Good.
And it's an interesting paper. If you
Yeah.
want to read it,
Thank
it's a
you
good
for
paper.
sharing that with us. That's
Yes.
wonderful. So is that to say most of those steps actually can be found there, right?
Yeah, they
So
can be,
for at least the move 1 and move 3, right?
but what I noticed is how much less explicit. In
Yeah.
that's kind of, that's why I wanted to pick a TESOL paper, because I thought they might be.
A little bit different, maybe.
Well, I thought being TESOL and a TESOL, they might have a similar kind of way they write, but it wasn't. This was
No.
unique to any paper I've read out of
That's right.
TESOL.
That's right. You know, some differences. I mean, individual say differences
Yeah.
as well there, right? Yeah, that's right. Wonderful. Good job, Ken. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Let us move on. Thank you. So I continue encouraging, you guys to analyze the students' writing and see how those cultural differences may influence their writing, right? But in some ways, try to do some comparisons in order to help them understand the English conventions better. Okay. Now, right after that, let me explain the current trend now. The current trend of contrastive rhetoric is getting to the contrastive genre-specific studies. That makes sense? So that to say there are some overlapping between the contrastive, rhetoric as well as the genre studies. So for example, we analyze student papers across different genres. For example, we can discuss the differences, for example, in research articles, right? How, for example, the Asian scholars of research articles might be different from, English scholars research articles, right? So, for example, some of them are research articles, some of them are business letter requests, and sales letter, grant proposal, and application letters, and even the letter of recommendation. So if you are interested in any type of genre, go for it. Analyze it. Try to figure out what are the distinctive features, right? What are the moves? What are the steps? The steps are, adopted in order to achieve the goal of moves, right? So I'll give you some example here. So first one is the moves in letters of a job application. So how many of you have already written job applications? A lot. Okay, yeah. So very good. So let us take a look. What specific moves usually you will include in your application letters?
You talked about what we did. It depends on what the position was.
Yes. For example?
For academic positions, it's different than for corporate America.
That's right. That's right. So for instance, if you need to write a letter of, application, for example, trying to, be enrolled into a certain PhD program, as you did, So what specific moves you think that was actually required? You should state.
You should state what specialty you want to do. It's always advisable in your statement of purpose to put what potential professors you might want to work with, and why, your previous work experience, what you've done in the past, if you've done any research or publication.
Very good. So how actually this can match, for example, the professors, the academic area match yours, right? How you can learn from this program. How can you bring, have some fresh air to this program, right? That's right. So here, let us take a look at this. If you ask the, English speakers, write a job application letters, usually such moves can be included. Apply for position. So I'm here to, I'm writing with a greeting to sender, right? So say to apply for this job. And then you, of course, include the resume, and then you explain your qualifications. Okay, this is so important. You explain your qualifications, and of course, you want to explore your desire for interviews, right? And usually say, I will be available, at which specific time, and also you address how you can reach, right? We even give the phone number, right, or email address. right? So, and lastly, and you express the, say your pleasantries. Now, this is a Belgian version that is quite short. Just 2 moves are included here. First of all, apply the preposition. Second one, include the resume. My resume is here. Go take a look at it, and you can find exactly how I match. And let, of course, let the say employers find out themselves, right? And then here comes another version that is Asian version. That is very interesting here. See, right after 1 and 2, the third and the fourth are something that are not so related to the job per se, right? They even do something like they ask for pity. So ask for pity or express apology. For some reason, I feel those specific speech acts even, sound a little bit, kind of like weird for me, because maybe that specific, words, maybe just because the people can really be polite, rather than say this is a pity, or rather than say it's apology, it's just kind of like a way of greeting, or even you show respect. You know what I mean? This is what I really kind of like disagree a little bit, because I'm arguing about the speech acts. This specific, say at least maybe it just sounds like it's apology, or it just sounds like it's also pity.
Right.
But in their own language, these are the features that can show your respect and show your, sincereness, whatever,
Right.
Does it make sense? Yeah, so I'm thinking, at least, if I check the Chinese application letters, we actually seldom say like, we are sorry for the inconvenience, blah, 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 because this is exactly the application, say letter. I want to definitely make sure that I want to get this job. Sometimes we even kind of like change our, way of writing, because we feel like we have to be competitive as well, right? We don't want to be so humble. To, definitely consider something like the face, whatever. Does it make sense? But even you find something like that specific apology or pity, still, I argue that was not really those specific speech acts we discussed traditionally.
I'm not even sure how we can use them in, for example, job application.
This is exactly what I question here, because it seems like it is not so related, right? But I can tell maybe they can say, they may say, I feel regret that I cannot join you, maybe your face-to-face session, whatever, maybe, it works, right? Yeah, but for me, I'm not quite sure whether some other, maybe Japanese culture.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I think that would be really specific to Japanese.
Yeah, I'm thinking possibly, don't you think so?
Yeah.
Maybe Japanese person actually do something differently, right?
Yeah.
So they usually tend to really kind of like apologize a lot.
Yeah, the apology and the pity, not in the pity of feel sorry for me, but I'm not sure I'm good enough for this job, that kind of thing. That's not unusual.
That's right. That's right. So that is exactly I'm thinking, because even for Chinese people, nowadays,
Oh, for example,
even
Yeah.
yeah. For
I
example,
was just thinking,
Yeah.
For example, maybe writing at the, I'm sorry if, for example, I don't have the qualification you needed, something like that.
Maybe, yeah. It makes
They
good
just
sense.
want to, I don't know, I know, now when I think about it, yes, maybe in some cultures you can.
Exactly. Something.
Yes, they try
Exactly.
to belittle themselves,
That's right.
but just to get attraction.
Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
use that.
Or even something to do with pragmatics. They just like want to kind of like save, for example, other space. For example, if you, as an employer, do not consider me in the future. Your employers actually do not have any, responsibility because it's me,
Yeah, I can see
who,
I was
you know,
thinking about even, for example, that expressing apology. Maybe if someone studies that, for example, Persian application, they can find that apology at the end. For
Oh, really?
example,
Uh-huh.
that is not apology. That is a way of
way of
thinking.
thinking. That's
For
right.
example, at
That,
the
that's
end,
I'm
they
thinking
say,
about that.
okay, I'm sorry if I, for example, had written a lot, so you
Uh-huh.
went into, I don't know, you spent some time to read such a long paper.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then again, that is something to do with your unique
Yeah.
way of showing respect, or
Exactly.
even
Yeah.
showing your politeness. Right? Yeah. Good. Very good. We're on the same page. Wonderful. Next example is a letter of recommendation. I think this is very interesting. Letter recommendations should be really strong, right? In order to help others, you need to write a strong recommendation letter. So for American writers, they usually include the personal stories of the applicant, because in order for me to say that I'm the right person who can actually evaluate your qualifications, I definitely have really close relationship and say interaction with you. So I of course provide the detailed say anecdote here, right? So, but journal writers just list the facts. List the facts about this applicant. Maybe no so detailed, say anecdotes or say personal stories, something like that, right? British writers.
Oh boy, the shade.
Do you know that?
No,
The study actually
Surprise.
showed that British writers tend to include at least one minor criticism. Minor, anyway, just minor.
Yeah.
All those make 100% sense to them, given the
Uh-huh.
cultures of the three. American writers, they want to know, can you work well within wherever you're applying for?
Uh-huh.
So that's the personal stories for. German writers, they want details and facts.
That's right.
German stereotype.
That's right.
British writers are self-deprecating. British always put themselves down. So
That's right.
that makes sense too.
So that is to say nobody is perfect, right?
Yeah.
Nobody acts perfectly. At least there should be a certain thing that you should point out. Or in that way, it can show the truth. They feel like, oh, this letter is definitely quite true, right? So you feel like that will be bad if there's no, weakness, because everybody has weaknesses, right?
Because I have the experience of, we all, I think, we ask our professors to send letter of recommendation.
Yeah.
Something that I noticed about the letter of recommendations of people from my country, that they use, it is exactly because of the culture. They use their feelings, they express their feelings toward you, their personal feelings
Uh-huh.
toward you while writing a letter of recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
That it really influences your writing.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
if they don't like you, they
Then,
don't consider, okay, for example, you have done a good job there, but I don't know, they don't like you, or they expected you to do something there, not because of the, I don't know, then exactly they write it there.
So you can
really?
be
Can you
perfectly
get me?
qualified.
You're perfectly qualified, but he doesn't like you, I don't know, because you didn't take, for example, your thesis with him. Got it?
uh-huh.
You didn't ask him to be, for example, your advisor. Then he goes and exactly writes, I don't know, something else. You've got A from this professor, but because you didn't take your, I don't know, dissertation with him and you change another professor, he writes, oh, this is all he's, exactly, he writes it there.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So that is to
I don't know
say,
how to express that, but
I see.
that is
Yeah.
what happens there.
Oh,
I-
so
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
yeah. So it's a very good example. So even like sometimes we actually read between the lines sometimes, right? So if you, sometimes something can be implied. Don't you think the readers can actually get some implications there? For example, so we are talking about the feelings, right? The strong, for example, if this is really positive emotion, and I think I can tell from reading this letter. But if I feel, maybe something implied, because in the recommendation letter, you may hear something, see something like, this person has a really good personality. So, right? But on the other hand, I would say something more about the qualifications, right? whether this is definitely perfect, say fit for him, I didn't mention maybe, right? Just focus on the qualifications, the perseverance, or, something like that.
Yeah, what you don't say can say a lot.
Uh-huh.
That's
right.
If you don't say anything about somebody's personality, maybe you're saying something about personality.
Uh-huh. Exactly. That's right. But for me, I just feel like I feel like I'm Americanized maybe already. And for me, like especially if you feel definitely agreed to support this person, right? You really want to write a really strong recommendation letters. We never, right, touch upon those kind of pieces at all, right? We never, right? And we try to have a lot of vivid, say examples and some personal, interactions, stories there. That's right.
Thinking about the British writers tend to include one minor criticism, if that was included, it would make it seem more honest.
I think so. I'm thinking about that because it seems like everybody needed to be frank, right, and honest, right? That's right. Honesty is the best policy for them.
I don't mean like a criticism. You know how when you go for a job interview, they'll be like, "What's your greatest weakness?" And
Yeah.
you come up with, "Oh, I work too hard."
That's right. That's right.
Too much.
That's
So
right.
it's
Not
like a
exactly.
weakness, but like.
Exactly.
Maybe that's what they mean by that. It's like, oh, this person, he's awesome, but
exactly.
he works too hard.
He just misses too much money.
Right.
Exactly.
Or kick my sins out.
That's right. Oh, they always want the perfect work, right?
Right.
They always, say go,
A fake criticism. I know. Don't hire this person.
That's right. Okay, very good.
Teaching while I have to
So- Okay, now, contrastive rhetoric definitely has some pedagogical insights. Now we know that it's always better for us to understand others' culture, right? So how those culture influence their writing. So we can see that from, say, according to Kaplan, the cross-cultural differences explained by different conventions of writings can be learned. So that is to say, we can learn, the specific, say moves, right? We can learn specific, differences by analyzing, say the texts, right? And also, the teachers of writing will benefit from this contrastive rhetoric because they can identify some potential pitfalls for the students, right? For example, there should be a lot of stereotypes there, but they at least maybe tend to believe that, okay, maybe these are the influence of this specific culture, and then try to figure out what are the good ways, say for them to help these students out, right? And also, especially for graduate students, it's really time for them to analyze the articles by themselves. They can also have their own corpus, right? They can actually use a certain corpus to compare their own habits and grammatical choice with those of successful one. Say in first language. Remember last time I mentioned I interviewed the postdoctoral researchers before when I was in Pittsburgh, and most of them mentioned that they had their specific folders, which specifically focus on how they can reuse those rhetorical moves, right? And they have some specific samples. They try to compare their own with those exemplars, say articles, right? So they can do. Like this. So lastly, I want to say this trend, new trend. Now, we seldom heard contrastive rhetoric because intercultural rhetoric has already replaced the first one. So that's to say now, they don't want to talk about the contrastive, instead we use intercultural. Looks, at least it sounds better, right? If we talk about contrastive, seems like something must be better, kind of like that specific evaluation, maybe we cannot say something is inferior, but here, if we talk about intercultural, and then everything's equal, right? So different features, okay? So intercultural rhetoric actually is the study of written discourse between and among individuals with different cultural backgrounds. So the focus is on the influence of first language, culture, and education on the products of the text, with the aim, again, of informing learners and the teachers. Okay, so here, take a look at these differences here. The focus on the influence on the production of texts. Okay, so that is to say, we not only focus on the written texts, we also, take into consideration how or what caused these products. So that is to say, we focus on the contexts as well. So that is to say, now in the research articles, you can find there are certain methodologies that are not used before, like the semi-ethnographic approach. So they even observed the participants, interviewed, and took field notes in order to understand why these specific products are like that. That makes sense. So for example, in the workplace, for example, if we want to analyze in English for, for example, medical purposes or English for science purposes, if we want to, understand why this specific, say, group produce a certain genre, for instance, right? And then you just go there, observe them, and take field notes, and record whatever activities they are, conducting, recently, even during the lab meeting, right? You can see for sure how, this specific, context or the processes occur. Is that clear? Okay, but anyway, again, textual analysis is important. You want to analyze the moves and the lexical grammatical features. Also, you can do corpus linguistics. That is to say, researchers design their own corpus themselves, right? And then analyze it and collect data and analyze it. For example, you don't think there is something like a certain, say, things missing, for example, in a corpus analysis. Then you yourself can develop a corpus, a small corpus, right? And then you connect the data and analyze it. Right? Isn't that cool? Okay. Lastly, intercultural rhetoric has already been developing, say, by the influence of other areas. So you can see overlapping here. So again, if we talk about the intercultural rhetoric, we definitely needed to consider English for specific purpose fields, right? ESP, or corpus linguistics, English as a lingua franca, right? So we criticize the ethnocentric approach. We focus on the English as a lingua franca, and everybody has the power, right? And also the critical pedagogy and the new literacies. They even analyze those differences of the web pages. The multimodality can play a role there too, right? So that is new literacies. Okay, that's all for this lecture. Any questions? Questions about the class? Questions about the readings? By the way, this week we will be finishing reaction paper. Okay, I gave you the assignment sheet already, right? So, do you think everything is clear? So once again, synthesize the readings. Try to see these patterns that can emerge. I do not really want you to just have that specific, like the common sense knowledge, right? I really want you to demonstrate your knowledge in this field right after you digest, all these readings we have already covered. So that's to say, you don't have to touch each individual topic. Instead, you focus on one or two topics we have discussed, and then of course refer to different readings or even the outside readings we want to introduce.
Question. So for the reaction paper, where you said we shouldn't do a summary of the readings, but rather if we have a question that comes out of the
reading, of course,
reading, then we can address that in the
exactly. Sure.
So maybe like for when we're talking about contrastive analysis, if we wanted to write something about English as lingua franca, like maybe world Englishes and how writers of Ghanaian English, for example, versus American English writers, what has been done in that particular area. Can we do that? That's what I was thinking.
You definitely can.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, you can definitely refer to the article we have read and then respond to a certain questions, or you pose a question about that article. Of course, we can do like that. But never have a structure like, I have already read the 3 articles regarding this topic. The first article will discuss blah blah blah, and then you say, okay, so I understand this, I understand that, blah blah blah, and then you continue to the second question, continue to discuss your second paper. Does it make sense? You try to synthesize. For example, you say, okay, so for example, if you choose this, contrastive analysis, also contrastive retro, right? So you focus on the big picture first, right? What you have known about this specific topic, right? And then you focus on specific, say, important topics that definitely capture your attention most. For example, you address the pedagogical insights a lot, for example, in your study. So you can definitely have your paper really focus on the pedagogical insights. So how this contrastive really, say, rhetoric can do for us teachers, right? You can have really a large section discuss that. That makes sense? I don't want you to represent whatever are discussed already here, but of course, it's good for us to refer back to the articles to pose questions about certain articles. Okay.
Can we use I in it since it's a reaction paper?
I said I encourage you to use I, right? Because it's a reaction paper.
It's still very hard for me
I know.
because my teachers
You
have
say
to
the
use
writer or the what do you use? I mean, I don't really like the passive voice.
I'm taking notes on this, and I wrote down, I will try to use that.
I will try to use I.
That's it.
It's
But
really
sometimes,
hard.
sometimes if you do try, you use the author, right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes you even do not use the author. You just say someone or one. One may be that, blah blah. Or even like says, it is said that, blah blah. So the passive voice. It's interesting. Even like I still remember my qualitative, say professor during my PhD study hate the passive voices. Whenever she saw passive voices, pointing out you need to change this passive voice to active voice.
I'm kind of the same. Yeah, maybe it's just because I was taught so much. Stay away from passive voice. Stay away from passive voice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have already formed the habit of avoiding the passive voice, usually in writing. But I mean, if you take a look at these research articles in medicine, for example, in science, there's a lot of passive voices, So again, this is varies, and of course, I don't think there's no right or wrong, just really say obey 3 C's. I love 3 C's: coherence, coherence and the clarity. I should put clarity first, I should say. I love clarity, coherence, and coherence. You say coherence and what did I say? The last one. Clarity, coherence, and what is the next C? I just mentioned
Coherence, clarity, and cohesion.
No, coherence. I'm talking about coherence. Because for coherence, you are just using those words.
Right.
Coherence is kind of like superficial for me, right? Coherence. And what happened? So
It's been a long day.
oh, I know. No, it's 3 C's. Everybody should know that. I'm so sorry. I just mentioned already, but I forgot. That's weird. Clarity. Did I say conciseness? Conciseness. Yeah. Is that right? Okay. Especially for the American medium way, right? Not dangerous. Okay. Thank you. And I actually needed to discuss with you about the say what do they call it? Discussion meeting next week. Okay. And then you guys, can wait. Yeah. So, I will be talking with you on Friday.
So,
I will email you.
Yeah, email me.
You email me first, maybe.
Okay.
Right? Because you mentioned about the contact information.
Yeah, I'll email contact information.
Right.
I'll do it tonight.
Yes,
When I get home.
yes, and then I will confirm with you the meeting time.
Okay.
Okay, you always feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Everything, if you have any questions, let me know. And if you think that I can be of any help, let me know, okay? Thank you.